Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm Carrie Friedberg, the SF Money Coach. I'm a holistic money coach, financial behavior specialist, and financial literacy educator. I recently launched a do it yourself personal finance 101 online course with 25 mini lessons on the practical and emotional sides of money, which comes with a financial literacy membership site where you can learn, practice, connect, and receive continuous support around your finances. You can read all of the details at sfmoneycoach.com/membership. Today, one of my dear colleagues who is a true talent in the realm of personal and business finances here. Hi, Jenny.
Hello, Carrie.
Hello! Let me tell you a little bit about this rock star. So, Jenny Abbott is the owner and founder of the Jenny Abbott Company, a remote bookkeeping company that works with small businesses and family finances. Before starting her own business, Jenny had accumulated almost 40 years of experience working behind the scenes in several family members' businesses. Without any formal training or education, she learned, often the hard way, how to track and understand the crucial financial information that's needed to keep a business running. And I'll just insert there's a way that families are like a business. There is a budget and necessary conversations and limits to things. And so, fascinating. The many challenges she faced over those years etched two very important facts in Jenny's mind. One was not knowing where you stand financially can affect every aspect of your life, relationships with family and friends, as well as your mental and physical health. We're going to talk more about that a little later. And second, being unclear about your finances hinders your ability to fulfill your purpose in life. So in 2013, when Jenny was 57, she started her own bookkeeping business with one goal in mind: to eliminate the chaos and confusion that many small business owners and families experience in their financial lives. Jenny and her team specialize in crisis bookkeeping and serve their clients with kindness and compassion. That's really what they're well known for. They partner with their clients to help ease the discomfort and fear that can be part of the journey to financial clarity. And I'm so honored she joined me today to talk about meticulous bookkeeping. So, welcome again.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, to get started, would you please share with us a little bit about your background and family history with money?
Yes, yeah, I've been thinking about this. My parents, I have to go back a little ways to give some background. My parents were both born during the Depression, so neither one of them had grown up with a whole awful lot. They weren't accustomed to money, or just weren't accustomed to having a lot of things. When they met and married, my dad was in the Marines, and he was in the Marines for the majority of my growing up years. There's not a lot of money in the Marines, and it was very tight. But because he grew up, most of his childhood was spent in poverty.
Hmm.
So it was very important for him to take good care of us. So we always had a nice home. We never lived on base. It was very important to him that we had a stable, kind of life,
Yeah.
even though he was in the Marines and gone, quite a bit. It was very important to him. When he got out of the Marines when I was 12, uh, well, during that time, I don't ever remember, even though I know that we didn't have a lot of money, I don't ever remember feeling insecure or deprived, or I never went hungry. My mother was a wonderful seamstress. So we always had, beautiful clothes and I don't remember any kind of money insecurity while I was growing up,
Wow.
which is, something for, coming from where my parents came from. I don't ever remember though them talking about money with us.
Hmm.
We never knew how much things cost. We had no idea, none of those things. And during that time, in our culture and society and so on, that wasn't a topic for conversation with children.
I know. Yeah.
which is too bad because you kind of take that along with you to, to my own family. And so anyway, but when I was 12, he retired from the Marines. He had gone in when he was very early, so he retired at the age of 37. So he had a whole lifetime of a career ahead of him. And he went into sales. So he was in commission sales, started out in insurance and moved to other things, and eventually became a real estate agent and then a broker and had his own business.
Hmm.
And he did wonderfully well with that. And so when I was in high school, our finances eased quite a bit because there was a little extra money. We were never rich, but we had enough for extracurricular activities. We had a nice second car. We lived in a little bit larger home. All of those kinds of things that come along with that. But again, I don't ever remember any conversations about money. I think also too that I always had the impression that my parents handled their money responsibly, and it wasn't really a conscious thought. And again, because we didn't have a lot of conversation about money, but it was like it was an accepted fact. And I think I thought that everybody as an adult handled their money well because that's the only thing I knew.
Right.
And imagine my surprise when I got married and found out that that wasn't true. So
Yeah. I mean, the stress of marriage, and then you have children as well. So yeah, and then as I was saying when I was reading your bio, there literally is this running a business together aspect of family life. And so, yes, that it sounds like that was your first kind of wake up call that money isn't like straightforward or easy and seamless all the time. Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
I know, for me as well. I think my first wake up call around money was when I was independent and out of the house at college. So I was like 13 hours away on the East Coast from Michigan, and I had a limited amount of spending money. It was provided largely by myself, by my summer jobs. My parents were basically like, if you want money to eat outside of the cafeteria or do anything else besides play tennis and study, then you need to work. And then you can have that money for the school year. And it was a really good lesson. It really was. And I'm, in retrospect, grateful that my parents made me have a job during college to pay for my own spending money. And I think my first wake up call was, running out of money. And so I think being responsible for my own cash flow was the first time I felt like a pain point around money. So it sounds like marriage might have been that, similar location for you.
Yes, yes, it was. And it was even more complicated in the sense that when you're bringing two people together with and maybe never having talked about money at all, and not understanding different goals, and that people think differently about it, it was truly a surprise and a shock to me.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it so is. And especially because in your generation there wasn't modeling about how important it is to be forthright or directly honest or ask questions about money. It wasn't a comfortable topic or a known topic at all. And that's true for me as well.
Right, and on top of that, during the time that I married, the man handled usually the finances. It was his responsibility.
Hmm.
Um, I was going to be taking care of children and taking care of the house. I worked a couple of years before we had kids, and my thought was I was just going to stay home and be a housewife and raise children. So it was a whole different culture that I had been brought up and that I was living through, than what is now. And when I look back and I think how naive and maybe I didn't lack enough courage. I don't know, but like you said, there was just no modeling. There was nothing to follow.
Yeah, exactly. So people were making it up, making mistakes, experiencing conflict,
Yes.
even financial infidelity, like hiding things or, not being totally comprehensively honest, even with their partners or their children. And so, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. And I am curious how you handled, financial education with your own children when their demands became more expensive, perhaps as teenagers or 20 somethings. Did you do what you knew, or did you kind of change family history at that time?
Well, there was a lot of complications because there was a divorce after 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at that point I was 37 and I had three kids and no marketable skills, and a lot of bad history of not knowing where I was financially in that marriage. And I ended up with being legally responsible for half of the debt, and it was a tremendous amount. So there was a lot of complications involved, and I came out of it with very very little money, well, like no money, and having to live with my parents. And so my kids did at that point begin to understand about finances because they had to know that, what things cost, and what they didn't, what we could and couldn't afford. And so it was not the best way to teach, but it was reality.
Yes. And was that about the time that you started working for some family members' businesses?
So yes, I had been pulled in and out of my ex-husband's business several times to deal with crisis situation and so on. So and that was well before computers. So any of the book work that I had done and had learned was done on spreadsheets. And so it was the old fashioned way, ledger cards and so on. Then I remarried, and then that was when I became involved in several different family member businesses. I had a brother-in-law, and my husband, and even I worked with my dad for a while in his real estate company. So that was where I started to gain a lot of my experience.
Wow. Okay. And I imagine it was, we've used the word complicated a lot, but working for family members is always extra interesting because there is a personal relationship. You are getting together on maybe weekends or holidays, and you know more information than you would as a regular bookkeeper. and
Yeah.
and even when the relationships change, you're still very much connected to that person and seeing them, if you decided I don't want to work for you, and setting boundaries and the dynamics. And so you had to navigate a whole lot while learning a new profession.
Yes, yes. And because I ended up doing the things that nobody else wanted to do,
Hmm.
everybody just wanted to go and do, you know, what they started their business to do. And the administrative and organizational end of it would end up in my lap. And again, with no training. So it was, you know, so it was insurances and contracts and learning how to invoice so clients would pay, all those kinds of things that, that it would have been nice to have had a degree in business, but I didn't. So,
Oh, yes. And so, actually, that's one of my questions for you. Is that something you would recommend for people who would like to, be a bookkeeper for someone else, or like you, run their own bookkeeping firm? Do you think a degree in business would be useful?
well, I certainly think that it would give them the background.
Hmm.
Again, I didn't even know what a P&L was, what a profit and loss statement was. I
Right.
didn't know what a balance sheet was. I didn't know how they worked together. So I was starting absolutely from scratch. And so by having some background in that, and if someone wasn't really interested in, going to get an actual degree,
Hmm.
but just taking courses, uh, just, something that gives them financial background, I think is very helpful. I don't think that it's taught in schools anymore. And I don't think that people even know what reconciling a checking account means. Um, so there's just some basic information that if they had that to start out, if they were really interested, if they have a mind that works, like a bookkeeper, that there are simple things that they could do that would prepare them, to start their own company.
No, I totally agree. I mean, to increase confidence, to um, give them a vocabulary, as well as, of course, support network. If they had questions, they know where to turn, whether it's back then a book, or and for me as well, I only used the internet for a single paper in college. So it was going to the library to get information, and
Yes.
yeah, and so I love it. That's so interesting. So let's talk about the practical nature of bookkeeping. And I often say that level one, or the foundation of financial wellness, is knowing where your money is going, which is tracking. And that is really hard, actually, if you've never done it before, or if you have a system that you inherited from someone else or that was suggested by someone else that doesn't quite feel right or work properly. And so, what tips do you have for people who want to get started with tracking?
So, what we tell our clients when we first meet with them is that there's two reasons to keep good, accurate records, for bookkeeping. The first one is so that you can send them to your tax accountant or you can do your own taxes, but tracking that with the tax basis in mind. And the second one is exactly what you said. So you know what's coming in and what's going out so that you can make wise personal financial or business, financial decisions. And our job as a bookkeeper is to marry the two. So we encourage our clients to take part. If they don't have really an idea of what they want, we tell them that we'll put together a general chart of accounts for them. And then the first time that we sit down to review what we've done for them, and we let them know if you don't like something, you don't like the name of it, you don't like the order that it is in, we can change it. This can be personally something that you understand. If you're not understanding this, we need it to be something that you can comprehend at a glance.
Yes.
So we kind of walk them through that process because I think oftentimes people don't even know what questions to ask or what they need to know to tell us what they want us to do. So it's just a matter of making sure that there's enough trust that they can see that there's no stupid question that and ask the same question over and over. That's okay, and that we're here to help and walk them through the process.
And by chart of accounts, do you mean only the category list or the budget, which would include the category list?
So we call ourselves data wranglers. So our job is to organize the data in such a way that our clients can clearly see. We actually don't do a lot of budgeting. If And that's where you have come in.
Hmm.
And it's so nice, that we know that if someone wants to do that, that we can turn them over to you. It's not that we can't. Each one of us on my team, we have our own budget, our own personal budgets and so on, and we do all of that. But we have found that we're really good at what we do as far as organizing the data and working with our clients to be comfortable with the financial reports and all of that kind of stuff. And we have decided not to do the budgeting part of it. We can help people so that they can set up the chart of account so that it will work for them, but we don't help them actually set up a budget.
Okay, all right, makes sense. Yeah, so it is more than the category list that you're talking about. Yeah, like this is the
Yes.
sum or the picture of where your money does or might go in a given year on the business side. Is your specialty mostly business owners, or I read in your bio that you're doing more family finances now. So is it both?
Yes, it is both. We have several clients that we do their business and their personal. And we also have several clients who have a business and their personal, and they have rentals, and we track all of those things for them. So we actually have expanded, what we're doing for that reason. Most of them we started out with their business. And then when they got comfortable with us and like that, it was like, oh, here, take over, so that we don't have to do this. And it's all, it's all mixed up together. Because each aspect, affects the other. So it's been very helpful for both our side of it, doing the work, and then also for the client to have everything kind of in that sense under one roof.
Okay, got it. Yes, that makes sense. Oh my gosh, I know. The teasing out and separating of church and state, because there is the gray
Yes.
area and the overlap, and that is hard work. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So I often use the word progress, not perfection. And there's more pressure, though, to avoid mistakes with bookkeeping. Yet people are fallible by nature, and your team is human too. Plus, sometimes, as we've experienced in this podcast recording today, sometimes technology lets us down. So, how do you manage that?
So we have two sets of eyes on every client file.
Hmm.
So we have a bookkeeper who enters the data and does the initial review and the reconciliations and all of the basic work. And then we have a second set of eyes as the account manager who will come in and review that work. So we always have two sets of eyes on each file for our client. And that's helpful. The work that we do is very detail oriented and very tedious. And so, you can look at something and make the same mistake, a couple times. That's why it is helpful to have somebody else, come in and review it before it goes out to the client. So that's one thing that we do. The other reason that we do that is most bookkeepers who work with the size of client that we work with, usually they're sole proprietors, so it's only one person who is working on a client file. um, if if their kids get sick or something happens or they go on a cruise, then their client suffers because they're the only one person, they can only do so much. But we have found it so helpful to have two sets of eyes, two people who are familiar with the file. That way, if someone goes on vacation or someone's kids get the chicken pox or whatever, we're covered. Our client is covered. Our client doesn't feel any pain when we might be, someone on my team might be going through, some challenges or whatever. So we have found that, to be very helpful. Um, the other thing too is that yes, there's technical dif- difficulties always, particularly since we work remotely. But we've worked hard to come up with as simple a system as possible, so that we have our to-do lists, we have remote, we have online storage, very secure, all those kinds of things, so that's all set up.
Hmm.
And the other, when mistakes are made and they happen, um, I'm the one who calls the client. The I always take on the responsibility for regardless of who or what, how or where or whatever. And I will usually make a phone call, depending on the import of it. And I will take the responsibility for it. And that clears my team to keep working, and for my clients to have confidence in the team.
Right.
And I've just have found that works the best.
I know. I love it. Okay, use the phone and connect and have a direct conversation, and yes, avoid email, a kind of lower form of communication over sensitive topics like mistakes. Yeah, I get that.
Well, and if we get an uncomfortable email from a client,
Hmm.
concerned about something, and maybe they sound a little irritated or maybe angry, I will oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, always. I pick up the phone. That's not a human nature initial response. The initial response is wanting to, let people cool down or whatever. But I have found it's best to call someone right away. I would much rather have an uncomfortable conversation for a few minutes and clear the air, make sure that, that we can move forward or do whatever needs to be done. But moving towards people when they might be upset, I find works really well.
Okay. That's really good advice. And I appreciate that because I mean, I have to deal with similar awkward moments and challenging conversations in my work as well. But I must confess, in my personal life, um, I may be more conflict avoidant, you know, but
Yes. Yes, I understand. Me
yeah,
too.
yeah. And there are times because money coaching involves bookkeeping. Basically, my approach is teaching people how to be their own bookkeeper. And when clients absolutely don't want to do it, have practiced, and still can't or don't feel successful, um, or they just simply do not have the time. That's why our collaboration with you and your team is so useful, and your services are priceless, really. Um, but so when people are their own bookkeepers, sometimes the balances don't match, or there's some reason that it's just not quite lining up. And so I work a lot with people about you know categorizing something as uncategorized, or making and living with it, or making a balance adjustment, which is not sweeping something under the rug. You're still accountable to the total spend, or the money fog, or the lost money, but it's okay to make an adjustment, acknowledge what happened, and move on. Like you were saying, when your team, of course, has personal lives and things come up. That's one of the reasons the team model works so well. You do what you can as a small business to help the work continue to go. Like, tomorrow is still coming, and there's more money to be tracked tomorrow. And so we have to be flexible and not rigid or striving for perfection with this process. And I think that's what a healthy and sustainable relationship with money looks like, is being flexible and kind of buoyant in that way.
I think that it's very true. I, I think oftentimes people are frightened about numbers. And they say, I'm not good in math. I'm not good with numbers. And the very interesting thing about bookkeeping is it's fifth grade math, fifth grade math and organization.
Yes.
And it just requires being consistent and dedicating yourself to take the time that's necessary, to do the work. It's like any number of things in life. We don't like to clean the bathroom, but we do it anyway, right? Because it needs to be done. And bookkeeping really is pretty much the same way. You don't have to like it to do it. And if you're not in a position to be able to turn it over to someone else, I think it's a matter of finding a system that's going to work for you. I think a lot of times people try and use a system that somebody else has set up and thinking that this is it. This is going to be so simple, but creating a simple system and sticking to it and making sure that it's a system that will work for you.
Exactly.
And they don't, people don't always know what that is. And we have no problem walking people through a process. We give a half hour free consultation,
Hmm.
and oftentimes, not actually oftentimes, but there have been times that I have found that in that half hour, we're able to figure out that new potential client and I were able to figure out that they don't really need us, that they could do something very simple. And we talk about it. And if someone needs to check in with me again, we can set up a time. I let them know what the charge would be.
Yeah.
So we're willing to be flexible. What I found in all those years that I was learning things the hard way is I didn't have somebody that I could call. I didn't have someone that I could ask questions to. And that's one of the main reasons that I went into this business is if we can be that for someone, that if they're, I don't even know what to ask, but maybe a half hour conversation will give them enough questions and enough direction that they can figure things out for their self. And then they know that they can always call me or email me, if they have some other questions, that we're more than happy to answer those.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. I realized that more in my 30s and now even much louder and in like every area of my life in my 40s that um help is a wonderful thing. I mean, the myth of like doing it
Yeah.
on your own or being independent, figuring it out, I should know this, or fake it till you make it is
Yes.
a bit of a farce and not great for people who, may have like patterns of, working really hard. Like, I must have to work harder to figure this out. And so, anyway, you're singing to the choir and preaching to the choir. I love it. So, what about when people really fall off the wagon? And this happens definitely to my clients. I myself have gone through some periods of not tracking. And how do you get back? I mean, the problem with falling off the wagon or not doing what you say you want to do is that it can reinforce negative thinking about themselves or money. So, what advice do you
Yes.
have to help people persevere?
Well, when people come to us and say, for example, and we have run into this quite a bit, where they haven't filed their taxes in 2 years.
Yeah, or
It
more.
maybe
Uh
there was
huh.
a right, yes, and we have had that too. But there's been crisis situations, something that's happened in their life, or maybe they just truly got a little bit behind, and then the guilt and the shame and all of that, and we understand that. So we we actually work with our clients in on kind of like on two different levels. It's not
Hmm.
just bookkeeping. We also know that there's a very strong emotional component involved in this. And by the time someone has contacted us, we know that they are most normally kind of in desperate need for them to finally reach out to someone. And so we're very careful how we work with clients in our initial interview. I am kind of gentle and kind of feel things out, and I read between the lines to try and get kind of an emotional
Read.
feel
Hmm.
on where someone is. Yeah, to read on them. We find that women in particular deal with so much guilt and shame, and once that guilt starts, then it opens the door to take on responsibilities that weren't there. And then there's more guilt and more shame and so on and so forth. So we work very, very carefully with that. Since we're doing the book work, if someone has hired us, we're doing the book work to get them cleaned up and straightened up. We encourage them to meet with us often. In fact, we're putting a lot more responsibility in our client to stay in close contact with us as we're working through that process, so that kind of like, how massage therapists, when they're working on you and their hand never leaves you, even if they're reaching for a towel or something,
Right, right.
that's kind of how we feel. Because if you leave someone alone too long while you're doing this kind of work, they're going to work themselves up into hiding from it again.
Yes.
So we try and work very carefully with people through that. And then we meet with them often once we get them up and running and all the way caught up. Then we work with them on a monthly basis and meet with them to go over each month, and so that they become familiar with the reports. Sometimes we end up meeting with clients, maybe some of them like that, and it's much easier for them to meet with us on a monthly basis. But normally what happens is once they realize that it's not scary and that they can understand it and it's not Greek, that it actually is, oh, that oh, this is my money. I see where it's going. This makes sense to me. Then they can read the reports themselves. But we're very careful about that. We don't want anyone falling off, and without without us being there to pull them out, if they need that.
I see. Yes, everything you're saying makes sense, definitely. Yes, and you know what often throws people off of any healthy habit or discipline is are life events, right? Like a move
Yes.
or a breakup or an extended travel or losing a job and just, normal but big, valid life stressors.
Yes.
It is
Yeah.
hard to continue doing the laundry or cooking healthy meals at home. And I think that personal bookkeeping is analogous to those chores. It's the laundry, really.
Yes.
um, I'm not belittling it or saying it's easy. I mean, I
Yes. Yeah.
needed a lot of help. My own first money coach was very much, it sounds like the service that you guys provide, gentle, consistent, available. We reviewed the same questions over and over again until I developed some level of fluency. I mean, I went from like literally not speaking money to understanding the basics. And now, I mean, there's some relief in hearing like, oh, fifth grade math, like I did complete fifth grade, like I can do that. And,
Yes. Yes.
but still to this day, 12 years into like a financial profession, I'm still not great at mental math. I mean, I need a calculator, And so I'm not one of those people that money came very easily to, or I could pick up anybody else's system and just learn it and master it. Like, no, I really needed to mold something that was 100% customizable with hand holding and support. So I think it's very normal for people to feel the same, and need and want that much help.
It's how I learn the best. And I learn best when someone's looking over my shoulder and helping me where I don't feel alone. And, as far as I don't ever add things up in my head, I use a calculator, I double check my figures, so it's all those kinds of things. It really is less about bookkeeping is actually less about money than it is about organization. Um, but when it's your money,
Yeah.
and you're organizing your stuff, it comes with baggage. It just does. And so, but trying to take away some of the fear is really important to us. And and we're just very aware that that's a very important part. We oftentimes will have team meetings where we will talk about the fact that one of our clients has a daughter getting married. So we know that going into that season, it's going to be very stressful for her. So we're going to be on the extra lookout.
Right.
If someone's moving or if someone's mother has been ill and they've been having to travel a lot, we're very aware of that. And we do take extra care when we're working on their books because we know that they may not be looking into things. We may be the only set of eyes on their credit card. So we will bring things to their attention if something looks a little off. So we try and take good care of our clients as if it were our own books, and we think that that helps.
Oh my God, absolutely. I mean, yeah, and it really isn't about the bank account balances. I mean, everything that you're describing is, oh my goodness, yes, and how money is in direct and subtle between the lines ways involved in everything we do. Where
Yes.
we live, how we dress, our what we're doing for work, and speaking of work, which doesn't have to be someone's purpose, but I want to go back to part of your bio, which really caught my eye, and I'm so curious to hear more thoughts about it. I'm wondering if you would elaborate about your observations that being unclear about your finances can hinder your ability to fulfill your purpose in life. What does that mean to you?
Well, I've experienced this myself, and then we see it in our clients' lives, is that money is when it's messy, it takes up so much headspace because there's this feeling of knowing. I think we all know that we need to be in control of our money, that, that we need to be aware of what's coming in, what's going out, and so on and so forth. And when we're not, it takes up headspace.
Hmm.
When something is taking up that much headspace, then you don't have the ability to devote yourself to what you really were created to do. And because it affects every aspect of your life as far as your relationships, again, if that's taking up that kind of headspace, you don't have what you need to really pour into other people's lives. Um,
Uh-huh.
and so it, it has just been something that we have found that by doing this, by taking care of the bookkeeping and so on for other people, that allows them the freedom to move forward. This gets taken care of. They can start breathing and they can start doing the things that they really need to do, and they now have an understanding of where they are.
Absolutely. Rather than playing Russian roulette, I call it sometimes, like when they're trying to figure out how to pay for things or which account. And I mean, the number of accounts that so many of my clients come into the work with. And while there may be historical reasons why six credit cards, five checking accounts, plus the business side, served purposes. And there were reasons and inspiration and good thinking back then. And, but when
Right.
it gets pretty out of control, that leads to stress. And like you said, it really can clutter someone's mind and literally affect their mental health, which of course affects their physical health. And
Right.
so it is about slowing down, distilling and discerning what's important, what's necessary, what's going to bring you closer to your goals and in alignment with your core values. Like you said, to be more freed up for joy, health, pleasure, success, connection, purpose, and all of those things. So I really hear you and agree with what you're saying. So a personal question, are your own books in meticulous shape?
They actually are. When I first started this business, I found that I wasn't keeping up with my own book work. And every now and then it would be like, oh man, I'm months behind. Well, that caused me such stress. So again, I'm speaking from experience that I am now extremely careful about that. And what I do as far as keeping my own books, it's probably more complicated than it has to be. I have a spreadsheet for cash flow, and I have different accounts for different things, and I transfer money over and so on and so forth. Um, but I'm okay with it because it makes me feel in control. And I know where everything is, and I can kind of see around the corner for the next couple weeks, and that's important to me. When you own your own business, your personal finances are tied to what your business is doing. And so I had developed a system years ago that I continue to work today, for my own cash flow. And I stay up to date on reconciling, and I actually do my own books. I don't let anybody else do it. I'm sure serious control issues that I have, but I'm okay with it. I've looked at it and I'm okay with it.
Me too. And this came up in a client appointment yesterday where actually one of my clients is struggling with her bookkeeper because the bookkeeper is behind and not answering questions or following up in a timely manner, just some yellow flags are going on. And she asked me, "Well, what about your bookkeeper? What does your bookkeeper do?" And I said, "I don't have a bookkeeper." And she was really surprised. And I just
Mhm.
shared that, I've decided not to make that financial investment. Now, in your case, you could probably ask your colleague to do it because it'd be part of the like office, project of the
Right,
week or the month.
right.
But for me, it would be an investment. So I've chosen not to pay for that. But similar to you, and I guess it really is about control, like tracking my own finances and knowing what's happening, having my fingers in the pots for my family life, with my young kids. And my husband is like really money avoidant. So someone has to do it. And so I'm the CFO, like it or
Right,
not. And
right.
um, but it is part of my ongoing recovery, and financial savviness, and helps me feel that buoyancy and flexibility for decision making in my financial life, knowing what's going on, having it be grounded in reality, being a good steward of the abundance and the money that we do have. It is like an act of gratitude for me to take as well as I can. It's not perfect, but to take good care of the Department of Money in our family life. And it's oxygen for me. I just can't imagine outsourcing it. And again, for me, like I am so encouraging of people outsourcing bookkeeping and hiring Jenny, but it's not what I need at this time for my ongoing healing and transformation. I mean, just sticking to the routines. Still, I still am gaining so much out of that. I think it's going to be a lifelong commitment for me.
Well, and I agree, and I love that you said that it's an act of gratitude by taking care of your finances. I love the idea of being a good steward of what you've been given, and that's very important to me. That's when I feel like I'm clearing the decks, is when I know where my money's going, I know what's coming in, and I know how to plan. But I love that you've added that act of gratitude. That places a whole different way of looking at it. That's a wonderful way of presenting that.
Thank you. Well, with that happy note, we are out of time. So let's wrap up. Jenny, I want to hear what you're working on right now in your business.
We're actually working on bringing someone else into the business. We are continuing to grow, and I need some more help on my end, and kind of support for me, and also support for both my team members. So we're developing a job description and to make it very clear, and we have very high standards of who we bring into our team. So this is kind of an adventure for us to do this. But that's the biggest thing that we're working on right now.
Good luck. That's so exciting. And Jenny has generously offered a free 30-minute consultation by Zoom or phone. And if our listeners want to take advantage or learn more about their work, how can they find you?
You can email me at jenny@jennyabbott.com, and you can also find me on our website, and that's jennyabbott.com.
Okay, great. And it's double B double T in Abbott, right?
Yes, yes, it is. And Jenny is Jenny. Very simple.
Yeah, perfect. So, Jenny, I just want to personally thank you for taking such excellent care of so many of my clients over the years. I'm really grateful for you.
Oh, well, we really enjoy working with you and your clients. They're a really good fit for us. And so we appreciate all of that. And thank you for having me
You're,
today.
it has been fun. And thank you all again for tuning in. And please acknowledge yourself. for taking the time to learn, practice, connect, and receive support around money. I'm Carrie Friedberg, the SF Money Coach. You can contact me and find information about my coaching practice, online course, and financial literacy membership site at SF, as in San Francisco, moneycoach.com. Please reach out if you have any questions or comments. I'd love to hear from you. We'll talk soon. Bye bye. And with that, we're out of time. Thank you again for tuning in, and please acknowledge yourself for taking the time to learn, practice, connect, and receive support around money. I am Carrie Friedberg, the SF Money Coach. You can contact me and find information about my coaching practice, online course, and financial literacy membership site at SF, as in San Francisco, sfmoneycoach.com. Please reach out if you have any questions or comments. I'd love to hear from you. We'll talk soon.